stop, because I forgot to mention it last time, I'm on a podcast now. It's called Fact vs. Fiction, and the basic idea is it's me and three of my mates. Two of them will talk about facts on one week, and then me and my other mate will talk about fiction when it's our turn. My segment is basically reading out the plot of a soap drama which I wrote when I was in school. It's called One Small Town, and you can tell that I was about 14 when I wrote it. Let's leave it at that.
He's not a Kelpie, he's on Facebook.
It's on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube. I will link to it in the description at the end of the video. Speaking of the video, this video is not about that podcast, but it is about my TBR list for 2021, my to-be-reads. I know I said I was going to make a video reviewing all the books that I read last year, and I still do plan on doing that. Well, not reviewing, but more like just going through each one and saying kind of what I thought about it. Well, I guess that is reviewing, but not in-depth reviewing, just a kind of brief discussion, and I'll just do them all in one. So I was going to make that video, but I decided this would be an easier video to manage. I didn't quite have the energy to do reviews of 26 books, so I just thought, hey, I'll talk about the books that I plan on reading. Don't have to say what I thought of them, just what I think I'm going to have thought of them. Let's start with the January lot. When it comes to TBR, for me, I think January is definitely going to be the time of the year where I just finish off what I didn't get to last year. So that was The Conjuring of Light, the final installment in the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab, which I have already read now. We've got The Unwilling by Kelly Braffett, which I'm currently reading. I'm near the end, I'm about here, I've only got like not that long left. And we've got Ravensgate by Anthony Horowitz. I was a big fan of the Alex Rider series when I was in school, and I read all of those, and then I found out that Anthony Horowitz had this other series called The Power of Five, and I thought, oh, I'll pick that up. So I've read the start of this book I think once or twice, and I just couldn't quite get into it because it was a little bit darker than the Alex Rider series for me at the time. But I figured now that I'm older, I'll give it another go, and maybe I'll read the whole series in time. Probably still be able to get through this in the rest of January. It's quite a thin book, especially compared to the average girth of the books that I tend to read these days. That was a sentence. So that is the January lot. And those are the only books that I will assign to a specific month, because that's just wrapping up the books that I didn't finish last year. That's what January is for. Moving on to the TBR 2021 list proper. I'll just go through these in the order I've got them stacked. Let's start with The Slow Regard of Silent Things. This is a very small book. So as I said in the last video, I read the first two books in the Kingkiller Chronicle. I did very much enjoy them. I had certain issues with them, but on the whole, I enjoyed them. And apparently, the third book has been taking a while to come out, so I may as well read this spin-off about Ori. Is it Ori or Auri? I'm not sure how to say her name, but anyway, I'll read it, because, you know, it's an interesting world, it's got a very interesting magic system, and I like the characters in it, so I'll just read that. And it's very short, and it shouldn't take me too long. This is like a 1 or 2 day read. What have we got next? We've got the Farseer trilogy. Well, I've been meaning to read a lot of Robin Hobb books for a while now, because I'd seen, when I was very much into the Song of Ice and Fire series back when you know, the show was still coming out and it was new and fresh, and they didn't shoot themselves in the foot in the last season and completely erase themselves from the pop culture zeitgeist by being so unbelievably bad that no one wanted to talk about it. I saw George R. R. Martin had done quite a few panels with Robin Hobb at like conventions and things, and they've always got quotes on each other's books. And so I thought, I'll get into Robin Hobb. I'll see what it's all about. Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest, the Farseer trilogy. I'm repeating the name of the series over and over because I just want to call it the Assassins trilogy, because that makes sense, and you've got assassin in every word in the title. But anyway, I look forward to getting into this and seeing what it's about, and I know that there's like a whole other series going on, and there's different trilogies within the same universe. There's like the Fool's trilogy as well, you know, Fool's Gold, Fool's Quest, and More Fool You, whatever the other one's actually called, and then these two must cross over because there's a book called Fool's Assassin. So I'm sure I'll get into that at some point. I have no idea whether I'll like it or not. I have no idea really what the plot's about. Based on the fact it's called the Farseer trilogy, that seems to me to imply some sort of prophecy or prophetic visions kind of thing. There's probably going to be assassins in it. I've got a fairly good hunch that there's going to be assassins in these books. Speaking of trilogies, I plan on doing a reread of the original First Law trilogy, because I absolutely love it. This has become my favourite series, and it's been a while since I read the whole thing, and I just want to revisit it, you know? Also, a good friend of mine, who's also on that podcast I mentioned with me, has started reading The Blade itself, and I'd like to read it again so I can chat with him about it and send him memes and we'll all have a good laugh about it. And after The Trouble with Peace has come out and I've read the whole series now, I'd love to go back and read it again, knowing now what's going to happen in the future of the series, and when characters are saying, oh, we're going to have a good time from now on, I'll be like, ha! Wrong. Actually, I'm not sure if there's any instance in this series where a character thinks they're gonna have a good time. Everyone thinks they're gonna have a bad time, and they're correct. I love it. So next up in my reading pile, we've got these two, The Waking Land and The Soul of Power by Callie Bates. Book 1 and Book 3 of this series. The reason I have Book 1 and 3, but not 2 on my reading pile is because I read Book 2 last year. I was unaware at the time I bought it, it was the second book in a trilogy. I just saw the cover and was like, oh cool, fire. I bought it, I read it, and I really enjoyed it when I read it last year. So I'll read this as a prequel to that one, and then I'll read this as a summing up of the whole trilogy, presuming that it stops as a trilogy and doesn't carry on to be a massive big long series, as some fantasy series often do. Speaking of big long fantasy series, the final book that I have on my physical TBR list, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. The first book in the Wheel of Time series. The Wheel of Time has been on my mind for a while. When people talk about classic fantasy series, this is often up there compared with Lord of the Rings for being quintessential fantasy reading. And I wanna know what's going on in here. I've picked up different versions of this book on shelves in stores over time, and I've had a brief glance inside, but it's always seemed like it was quite a dense book in terms of the writing style. But it's got a huge fan base. There's a TV show coming out about it, and I just feel like as a fantasy fan I should just suck it up and read at least this book. That's the other thing. There's about between 12 and 1200 books in this series, and the problem is if I like this book, then I'm gonna have to buy all the other ones and read them as well, which is gonna take a lot of time. Maybe that's what the Wheel of Time is talking about, the time that it takes you to read this series. So at some point this year I do plan on reading Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World. And there we go, that is my TBR list for 2021, except it's not, we're not done. Last year and the year before I watched the HBO BBC His Dark Materials show, and I really enjoyed it. I did see the movie, The Golden Compass, when it came out, and I was a little kid then, and even as a little kid watching that, I was like, something feels off about this, and turns out I was right. It was not well received. I remember watching it as a kid and thinking something felt missing from it, but then I watched the new series, the TV series that they're doing, and really enjoy it. So I think I am probably going to try and read the His Dark Materials trilogy this year, hopefully before the third season of the show comes out, so I can watch the show and be like, oh, that's what happened in the books. Get all excited about that. Including the His Dark Materials books, which I don't currently own a copy of. That's 14 books. Did I count that right? No, 16. 16 books for my 2021 TBR. Considering that is 10 less than I managed to read last year, I think that's manageable. And as I read these, I probably will make videos talking about how I felt about them, doing wee little book reviews as we go along, so you'll be able to join me on my journey, see how far along I'm getting in this task that I've set myself. If you liked this video, then why don't you go ahead and leave a bloody like on it, cause, that's just a nice thing to do, innit? And you can also check out some of the other videos that I made, some of the other content that I've created. There'll be a thing on the screen you can click on, and also I'll put some links so you can subscribe to my channel, and you can have a bit of a gander at the podcast that I mentioned at the start of this video. So I'm gonna go and finish reading this, but before I do, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next one.